You've seen them in movies, on lunchboxes, and probably had nightmares about them as a kid. Dinosaurs have captured our imagination for generations, but here's the thing. Most of what you think you know about these ancient giants is probably wrong. So let's break down every single popular dinosaur you've ever heard of and separate the Hollywood myths from the actual science. Let's start with the king himself, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Everyone knows T-Rex, right? Tiny arms, massive head, terrifying roar. Except here's what the movies won't tell you. That iconic roar probably never happened. Scientists now believe T-Rex likely made deep, rumbling sounds more like a crocodile, or even closed-mouth vocalizations like modern birds. And those tiny arms everyone jokes about? They could each lift over 400 pounds. Sure, they look ridiculous compared to the rest of its body, but they were pure muscle. T-Rex lived around 6 million years during the late Cretaceous period, and it wasn't just a mindless killing machine. Recent studies suggest it was actually quite intelligent for a dinosaur, with a brain-to-body ratio similar to modern chimps. Now let's talk about Velociraptor, because Jurassic Park really did this creature dirty. The velociraptors you saw in those movies? They were actually the size of turkeys, maybe 3 feet tall at best. The filmmakers based their movie monsters on Deinonychus, which was much larger, but even that wasn't as big as what you saw on screen. Real velociraptors were covered in feathers, looked more like deadly chickens, and hunted in packs. They had that famous killing claw on each foot, which could grow up to 3 inches long, but they probably used it more for gripping and climbing than the slashing attacks Hollywood loves to show. Triceratops is another crowd favorite, and honestly, this one is just as cool as you imagine. Picture a living tank with 3 horns and a massive frill around its head. That frill wasn't just for show either. Scientists debated for years whether it was for defense, temperature regulation, or attracting mates. Turns out it was probably all 3. The horns could grow up to 3 feet long, and Triceratops used them exactly how you'd think, like a rhino charges today. These herbivores traveled in herds and could weigh up to 12 tons when fully grown. They were one of the last dinosaurs to exist before the asteroid hit, which means T-Rex and Triceratops actually did face off in real life. Nature's ultimate showdown actually happened. Stegosaurus is the one with the plates on its back and the spiked tail, and it's been confusing scientists since it was first discovered. Those plates weren't for protection, like everyone assumed. They were too thin and filled with blood vessels, which means they probably helped regulate body temperature or were used for display to attract mates. The tail spikes, though, those were absolutely weapons. Scientists call it a thagomizer, and yes, that name actually comes from a Far Side cartoon. Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut, which gave it a reputation for being the dumbest dinosaur. But that's not really fair. It survived for millions of years, so clearly it was doing something right. Brachiosaurus was the giraffe of the dinosaur world, with a neck so long it could reach treetops over 40 feet high. For decades, scientists thought it lived partially in water, because surely something that heavy couldn't support itself on land. Wrong again! Brachiosaurus was fully terrestrial and could weigh up to 80 tons. Its front legs were longer than its back legs, which gave it that distinctive upward-sloping posture. And here's something wild. It might have had a heart that weighed over 400 pounds just to pump blood all the way up that massive neck. The name means arm lizard because of those long front limbs. And it spent most of its day doing exactly what you'd expect, eating. A creature that size needed to consume hundreds of pounds of vegetation daily. Pteranodon wasn't technically a dinosaur, but everyone thinks it is, so let's clear this up. It was a flying reptile with a wingspan that could reach up to 23 feet. That's bigger than most small planes. It had no teeth, which is what the odon part of its name refers to, meaning toothless wing. These creatures dominated the skies for about 9 million years, during the late Cretaceous period, fishing in ancient oceans, and probably living in coastal colonies like modern seabirds. They weren't graceful flyers like birds, though. Scientists think they were more like massive gliders, using air currents to stay aloft without flapping those enormous wings constantly. Spinosaurus is having a major comeback in popularity, and it deserves it because this thing was bizarre. It had a massive sail on its back that could reach 6 feet tall, longer arms than T-Rex, a crocodile-like snout, and here's the kicker. It was probably semi-aquatic. This was the only dinosaur we know of that spent significant time in water, hunting fish and other aquatic prey. Recent discoveries suggest it had paddle-like feet and a tail designed for swimming. Spinosaurus might have actually been longer than T-Rex, possibly reaching 50 feet, which would make it the largest carnivorous dinosaur ever discovered. Ankylosaurus was basically a living medieval fortress. This herbivore was covered head to tail in thick armored plates, had spikes along its sides, and wielded a club tail that could shatter bones. That tail club could weigh up to 60 pounds and was made of solid bone. When threatened, Ankylosaurus would crouch down to protect its softer underbelly and swing that club with enough force to break a T-Rex's leg. It was built so low to the ground that flipping it over wasn't an option for predators. This creature was the ultimate defensive specialist. Allosaurus was the apex predator of the Jurassic period, millions of years before T-Rex showed up. It was smaller than T-Rex, but probably faster and more agile, with arms that were actually useful for grabbing prey. Allosaurus had distinctive horns above its eyes and a bite that was designed more for slashing than crushing. Evidence suggests they hunted in packs, which means groups of these predators might have taken down prey much larger than themselves, including massive sauropods. Here's the reality about dinosaurs that nobody wants to accept. They weren't scaly monsters. Most of them were covered in feathers or proto-feathers, especially the smaller carnivores. They came in colors we can only guess at, but fossilized melanosomes suggest some had vibrant reds, blacks, and browns. They were more closely related to birds than reptiles, which means the chicken you ate for dinner is technically a dinosaur descendant. The asteroid that wiped them out struck with the force of 10 billion nuclear bombs. But it wasn't the impact that killed most dinosaurs. It was the aftermath. The impact threw so much debris into the atmosphere that it blocked out the sun for years, creating a global winter that collapsed food chains from the bottom up. The only dinosaurs that survived were small, feathered ones that could burrow or find shelter, and they eventually evolved into the 12,000 species of birds we have today. Every single dinosaur you've ever heard of lived millions of years apart from each other. Stegosaurus was already extinct by the time T-Rex evolved. The span of time between Stegosaurus and T-Rex is greater than the time between T-Rex and you sitting here right now. These creatures dominated Earth for over 165 million years, while humans have only been around for about 300,000. We're not even a blip on their timeline.